Get Into Geek, episode 28. Pretty big one, boys. Thor's Chariot, season 2, episode 6. We are the full Get Into Geek team. My name is Mitch. Joining me, as always, Matty Gibson.
Yo.
Brendan Gibson.
Yeah, sure, you betcha.
And Rhys Gibson. That was new.
I get weirder every episode.
And that's saying something. Yeah. All right, let's see what the DVD's got for us. The SG-1 team travels to the planet of Cimmeria to protect it from a massive Goa'uld attack, but they are quickly outnumbered and overpowered. Can they solve an ancient Cimmerian riddle in time to save the planet and themselves? And once again, Walter, nowhere to be seen in this because nowhere to be seen in this goddamn episode. I want to talk about that, actually. Walter, where the hell is he? Where the hell's Walter gone?
We haven't seen him.
Fan favourite.
Yeah.
I have got something coming up, actually, to show some insight into that. So
Where he is, Walter.
Where Walter is. So, yeah, keep an ear out.
And also on this episode, while I'm looking at the DVD, can we just address not even the elephant in the room, the unicorn in the room, Miss Catherine Powers. She's back.
yes.
Welcome back, Catherine. Oh, we missed you.
Baby.
I mean, she's batting 1,000 for me. Yeah. Like, really. I mean, Emancipation, Thor's Hammer,
Did
Thor's
she
Chariot.
start with Emancipation?
That was the first
I
episode.
never knew that.
Yep.
Yes, you did.
Did I? I've forgotten it. I've forgotten
The
it.
only way is up.
She's written
That's
Thor's...
why we were
Catherine.
disappointed when she didn't do Hathor.
Oh, yeah, that's
written by
right.
She
dude.
wrote Thor's Hammer, Thor's Chariot. She wrote Enigma. She's
Yeah.
batting 1,000 for me.
Yeah.
Yep.
All good except Emancipation.
We're gonna bite. She does go on to write Serpent Song in later this season, and also Pretense next season, which are a couple of my favourites as well.
And we're talking about her in a couple of weeks as well.
Yeah, she did
not
Family.
I'm ignoring that. I don't know what you're
You
talking
should
about.
ignore episode 3.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Thor's Chariot. Yeah, we've been waiting for this one for a while. I feel like you guys have been teasing towards this episode for quite some time. We got a little teaser of Thor and the Asguardians last season. Was it also? That was about episode 7, I want to say.
Episode 9.
There you go, a little bit
Yeah,
later
which is
on.
I think where Brendan and I do vary. We both love this episode,
Yeah.
but I think I love this episode a little bit more than Thor's Hammer. But I think Brendan might love Thor's
I
Hammer.
love
a little
Thor's
bit more
Hammer,
than Thor's
just
Chariot.
obviously because of the Unas and James Earl Jones, and that's where it stuck with me.
yeah.
I just love those lines when they're in the labyrinth, as he calls it. But yeah, this is awesome, and it is interesting. We've been talking about parallels of season 1 and 2, and sequentially how they've been happening. But I think this episode is better. It's well written and it's more exciting, especially that scene with Daniel and Carter. Oh man, I could watch that every day.
You know why I think this episode is better? Is because it's got answers rather than Thor's hammer rose a lot of questions. How did they get the hammer there? Who put it there? Blah, blah, blah. Whereas this just revealed everything and it had more answers than questions. I think that's why I found it to be a better episode.
And I think this is actually the first episode too that we've returned to a planet on screen.
Yeah, yeah.
Like there is obviously talk that we've returned to the land of light before, and all these sort of things off screen. You know, dealing with trade and becoming allies, blah blah. But this is the first time we've seen them go back to a planet that we've been to solve another problem. You know, like I said, getting answers and doing more of that world building where we're revisiting places.
Yeah, because we've been talking about season 2, even before we got here, that we just needed to get through season 1 because it lays a lot of foundation. And they do retcon a few things that they did in season 1, but it does set itself as the building block of the entire franchise. And season 2, what it's been doing, even as it sort of repeats a few story beats in a lot of the episodes, it's using what season 1 set up. And this one too, like at the start, they talk about Cimmeria, and it's a place, we've been before, and we're talking about characters that we've met before and things. They don't necessarily repeat everything that they've told the audience before, but if you are watching it, if you only come on board the show at season 2, I want to say that you could probably pick up pretty easily what's going on. They've been there, ran into a little bit of trouble, made an ally, and now they're back there and continuing on what, like you said, Rhys teased a lot of good stuff to come, but we didn't get it for nearly an entire season's worth of episodes.
It's like this could almost be a direct sequel. Like this could have actually been 2 parts, except for the fact that what we find out about Kendra. You know, obviously time has had to have passed for that to happen.
Wasn't that such a stupid thing? Where's Kendra? Oh, I'll take you to her.
She did Hammond style catfishing. She was like, oh, follow me. What I want to know is how far were they?
How long did they
Was
go?
that
Yeah.
if that was a 2-minute walk? I
Yeah.
get it. If that was like a
5 hours.
2-kilometer walk that they had to trek,
Where is
we
she?
were walking for 2 days and she's dead? Why didn't you tell us that?
They're on the way there. They're like, where is she? She's like, oh, you'll see. I can't reveal it
see
yet.
it,
It's a surprise.
Carter and Daniel are like, this isn't the way to her house. We didn't go this way last time. And Gawain's like, no, she moved. It's fine.
No. It was a plot device. We have to keep going.
There's all her shit. Grab it.
Yeah, that's about the only.
Well,
reason.
they have to give Carter a chance to talk about Jolinar again.
Yeah.
Don't they?
Flog that
Definitely.
dead horse.
Did she seem surprised when who brought it up? And they said, oh, this might be because it was at Daniel Jackson. He's like, oh, you would be able to use the device because of... And he called it just Jolinar. He's not even pretending there's an S and an apostrophe at the start or however you pronounce it. But I was almost like, oh, really? Did you have to bring that up? She's looking for excuses to talk about Jolinar. And then she's like, what are you talking about, Daniel? Jolinar? Oh, yeah, my old friend. Look, you don't know about it? Strange woman from Cimmeria? Yeah, look, let me talk to you about it, okay? It's a big thing.
Really traumatic.
Yeah. And for me, too, it was actually more of what we were talking about, just a little thing that's not so much to do with this episode in particular, but what we were talking about a few weeks ago with Prisoners and about what the show has told us about one-way or two-way gate travel. It seems like the showrunners, they know in their own head whether gate travel is one-way or two-way, but they haven't necessarily revealed it to us, but they're doing it kind of subtly, like even at the start where they get that message from Cimmeria and they send the Malp through. Now, when they send the Malp through, they're assuming that it's because something's gone wrong on the other side. But they're not really prepared for that. So I don't see that as being like an SGC decision, more of like the riders not necessarily riding. They've got to have a full armoured guard because they're assuming that the Goa'uld and the Jafar are on the other side of the wormhole. But of course the riders know that if we've dialed to that planet, the Goa'uld aren't able to come back to us, so they don't have to feel under threat. I don't know, am I just like looking too far into it, or do you think
so,
they've told us one way is the way that gate travel works without really putting it out there yet?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
They haven't really discussed it even in the movie. I can't remember them saying it or not.
Yeah, I think now that you say that, they always say, oh yeah, once we get there, we'll send the Malp back through, which I guess if you're thinking about it, you can't just drive the Malp through one way and then go, okay, it's all done, and then drive it back through the same connect.
Yeah.
I think maybe it was probably maybe not said as factual as it is later in later seasons, but in the movie, obviously, the main plot point is once they get to Abydos, there's no address for them to dial back. And if they thought gate travel was two-way, it wouldn't matter because Earth could just dial Abydos again and we could all walk back. Whereas the whole point in the film is Daniel has to discover what the seventh chevron is, because remember it's broken off that piece of stone or whatever.
Yeah, it is interesting though because they didn't even really talk about that in the movie.
No, it's just something that's alluded to. So you'd think that the writers of the TV show would hit it a little bit harder to reinforce it, given that it's a new TV series, just to sort of because definitely in later episodes, even in this season, it's hit home very hard.
Yeah, well, even use it as an opportunity to rewrite it to suit their own needs. But instead, I guess they're just working off the unwritten rule, the unspoken rule of gate travel that the movie did. But I didn't even think about the fact that the movie pretty much laid it out for us without giving it to us in the dialogue. Yeah, that's a
perhaps
fantastic point.
It was some notes, for feedback from, because obviously, like what you were saying before, Mitch, about sort of this season versus last season, is maybe in terms of they went back and looked at what worked well last year and applied it this year. So Thor's Hammer, obviously a really popular episode. Let's do a sequel to it. We never go back to Nem's planet. We never go back and see Fire and Water again. So obviously, that wasn't a huge...
Or Emancipation.
As my dismay, we never go back to visit these societies
because they know those women are enslaved. So.
They fell back into their ways.
Hey,
they don't care because it was dark days.
So maybe it was a matter of maybe some of the feedback they got was, especially in episodes like this, people were confused as to, like, new viewers were confused, and there needed to be that refresher of, yes, gate travel is only one way.
The other thing is too, I noticed when they went through the gate, they had a wide shot and then the Malp wasn't there. So they'd sent the Malp through and then they go on the mission, and when they arrived at Cimmeria, there's no Malp.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Nox.
Oh, yeah, because it's like, the Malp can't exactly dial the gate and send itself back.
Yeah.
Like, it can only be when someone actually goes there. Because obviously time would have passed, because the team goes and gears up and gets ready and then goes through, but it's like...
They're not leaving the gate open. That costs a fortune. That's the other thing I was going to mention, actually, when we're talking about how much it's supposed to cost. Every other world... Stargate travel is free because it's got a DHD, which obviously powers it. Why don't we use the DHD from Solitudes?
I think
Is it because we can bypass all the safety protocols?
Well, I mean, how are you going to fit that in the control room? I mean, you're going to have to move...
Move the whole supercomputer out of the way.
You're going to have to move...
You don't need it.
Walter's going to have to roll his chair to the side,
Yeah.
I just imagine, because Walter, what's he been in, one episode this season so far?
I know.
Maybe two, up to episode 6.
Yeah.
But I just want to see him come back from whatever hiatus he's on. And he goes back to his desk, and there's this giant alien computer, and they've just literally cut a hole in his desk. He's like, what's going on? It's like, no, we actually don't need you anymore.
Yeah.
Like, we can.
Yeah.
I go to Thailand for
It's
2
fine.
weeks.
I guess it's so they don't have to manually type it in, I guess.
Yeah.
Every time. They just
Yeah.
go, oh, there it is in the database, enter.
And I suppose they've got the iris as well that needs its own
Yeah.
control interface and all that sort of
I
thing.
just, like, in
You'd
last
save
season.
some money, though.
Yeah. What is it, right?
good.
Is it like, essentially, is it solar powered with the DHDs?
They're
or is
crystal
the
powered.
crystal in the red thing, like,
Yeah.
whatever's
I
going
think
on the
it's
button?
like, I think it's like a car. Like it's every
Charges
time.
when you use
every
it.
time you use it, it charges itself back up.
Well, you got to think the makers are that smart. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd actually be the most genius way of doing it, surely.
But I think we don't see the Antarctic DHD. I want to say till Touchstone.
Yeah.
We'll see it later this season. But then we don't actually find out what happened till I think the start of season 6 in Frozen.
Jesus.
Carter says one line, and if you blink, you'll miss it,
Mm.
and that basically explains away the Antarctic DHD.
Yeah, and I guess from what we saw in season 1, where the Goa'uld started sending bombs through, or at least Jafar and things like that, and our guys were trying to dial out, to try and beat them before the new incoming wormhole opened up. That would take the tension out of it, I guess, if we had our own DHD, because you just bang, 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 bang,
Yeah.
bang, bang, Chevron 7, bang, it's done.
Yeah,
Whereas
Walter
it's
would be devastated.
Quick, 5-3. Yeah. Like, that's his bit. Hammond's all about putting on the self-destruct. Walter's like, can I dial this quick enough before they call us? I'm talking about
Jackson's dialing it, and Walter's every shot going, Chevron, slow down, locked. Yes.
I think they do get faster and faster over time, and I think there's even one episode in a later season where they've got a QWERTY keyboard, and they've basically whited out all the letters, and each letter is now a symbol. And like, because they have an alarm, they go, "Where would you like us to send him?" And he just goes beep 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 in the QWERTY keyboard, and that gives him the address he wants to go to.
Because when you're using a DHD, it's more or less instantaneous. Once you hit the address and press the button, it goes wah, wah.
Pretty much, yeah. There's not that
There's no the big
extensive
spin.
dialing that
right,
we have.
yeah.
We have
the
like an
wheel
analog system in a digital age.
Yeah. It's like, we've got the old phones we used to. Remember when you were a kid, you used to have to
The old
dial
finger
9 and then let
dial.
it roll back, and whereas everyone else has got the new touch controls.
Yeah.
Yeah, iPhones.
Did anyone catch the, I want to say the R word that Gowan drops that I don't think I would have noticed 10 years ago when I first watched it, but it's very important in Norse mythology.
Is it Brendan's favourite R word?
Probably not, knowing Brendan.
Oh, radius.
And he still
Well
surprises.
played.
Ragnarok, where she said we saw the Goa'uld ships coming and we thought it was Ragnarok, and Daniel has to explain to them it's the Norse mythology prophecy, I guess, of the
Armageddon,
apocalypse,
end
of
the world.
Armageddon. Yeah, and I probably would have liked the sound of that word when I first watched this episode 10 or 15 years ago, but now that in the MCU, Thor, they're actually giving Thor his own movie called Ragnarok. I think it's a word that it's going to be a little bit more mainstream now. You don't just have to be like a mythology nerd to pick up on. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Just a Hemsworth fan.
Yeah.
Well, that's what people think of my tattoo, because I've got a Norse tattoo on my arm, which is it's the triple horn of Odin, and people think,
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
I thought it was for the 3 Hemsworth brothers.
Is there 3?
Surely there's another one somewhere.
There'd have to be 2 really big horns and one just really little one that no one notices. But no,
Still just as important, okay?
I've
Look, I'm speaking on behalf of all older brothers, of more successful younger brothers. Okay, we're still cool, okay?
But no, when people ask me what my tattoo is and I say it's triple horn of Odin, they say, "Oh, so you're a big Thor fan, are you?" And I go,
Oh, God!
Oh,
"Sure."
God.
Just to move on. I'm like, "Sure, yeah."
I liked it before it was cool. Sure you did, mate. Sure you did.
But not to harper on, I'm not so much trying to have another crack at Emancipation, but one thing that we do always throw back to with that episode is an awful knife fight with Carter at the end. I think this episode might be something we can talk about. It has possibly the worst gunfight I think I've ever seen. The first time that SG-1 encounter the Jafar, and you've got Teal'c with his staff weapon, you've got O'Neill with his machine gun, 2, 3, 4 Jafar coming at them, and they are just firing over the top of each other. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
At
both
one
of them.
stage, they show a close-up of O'Neill just... And they go back to the Jafar, and I'm like, where is he hitting? Because we're on a pretty wide shot, and it's not like he's hitting trees. He's not hitting the stones there in front of them.
Stormtroopers.
You
very
actually see the
least-
energy blast from Teal'c's staff weapon, like, so far higher than what their heads are. I'm like, you are not that bad at shooting. When did everyone in this show become stormtroopers, not just the Jafar? Like, it went on for so long, no one hit anything. And then he throws a grenade and it's all over.
Yeah.
And then more Jafar coming. You're like, I'm out of grenades. Clearly we're not shooting anything. Let's go!
Yeah.
It was just embarrassing to watch. If it lasted 5 seconds, it would have been fine. But
I had a thought about the Jafar. How much more effective would the Jafar actually be if they had radios instead of those stupid bloody horns?
Yeah, I was just about to say that.
Like, seriously, like the
Yeah.
Goa'uld have all this technology.
Oh, which one was that?
Was that 2 or 3 horns?
Yeah, they've got these, staff weapons that shoot bolts of energy and zat weapons and teleportation rings and fucking spaceships. And yet the Goa'uld Lords are just like, walkie-talkies? No,
Yeah.
here's a bullhorn.
is this the
Obviously.
first time that we've seen the horn?
I think we may have heard it in Children of the Gods,
Yeah.
but I'm not 100%
Did it seem new to
certain.
you, Rhys? Obviously, you're the other one watching these for the first time.
It didn't, but then I've watched a whole heap of the 100.
Yeah, right, okay.
So it seemed familiar to me from
And
there, I
Vikings.
guess.
And Sean Bean in Lord of the Rings. Like, yeah,
And-
that's where we're all
And,
going to die.
Canberra Raiders home games.
Probably the most similar to this episode of Thor and his Vikings.
And
yeah.
guys, Roswell f***ing Greys.
Yeah!
Oh my god.
Yep.
You
Hold on,
knew it.
hold on.
I mean,
Mind
we knew it.
blown-
But
yeah.
you didn't.
You know what? I actually,
Oh, God. Get that phone away from him.
can we get like a lead box and put it in while we're in the studio? I don't want you even having any reminders that you even own a phone while you're in here. You know what? And I obviously haven't watched these episodes in a while. I've said that before in this chat. You, Matty and Brendan, have watched these a lot more recently than I. I completely forgot that this is our first introduction into Thor, because there's another very important episode coming ahead. I don't even remember now which season it's in. This has sort of thrown out anything I thought I knew or remembered. And I thought that episode was the first time that we actually saw Thor and his
I think
race.
it's the first time Jack sees him.
Right, okay, well that makes sense. Yeah,
Well,
so
yeah, in the flesh, I suppose.
yeah. Whereas this was this was cool reveal, which I'm glad, because the Thor hologram, we had just enough of him in Thor's hammer to sort of not make him so annoying, but in this I'm like, okay, this guy's really not that good of an actor, and his lines aren't really that good. Like if that was the Thor, if you found out that was the Thor, you'd kind of be a little bit disappointed.
Yeah.
And now that also, not to throw back to the MCU as well, but like that Thor has such an oversized hammer that anything smaller than that just looks so puny now.
Yeah.
So when that happens, this
It's like
guy
an
looks
ice pick.
Looks
He's
like,
like-
a ball peen.
Yeah.
And you're just like,
He's 6'7". He goes, "I will show you the real power I have," and holds up this hammer. And I'm like, what is that? It looks like a
It's
child sort of like.
$7.95 from Bunnings.
Plaything.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah,
It's Will Smith's gun in Men in Black. The
Oh,
cricket.
noisy cricket.
I felt like I'm
Yeah.
going to break this damn thing. So what do you
No,
think?
but
What do you think
in-
of the Grace?
Oh man, because in the lead up to it, when they're in the Hall of Thor's Might, when they're trying to work it out, and Thor comes back up and he's like, "Well, don't feel too hard on yourself." Then Daniel's like, "Just wait," and then it froze, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh my god, someone's listening! Somebody's listening! Somebody's there watching them! This is real!" And then I'm like, "Yeah, Jackson's got this. He's smart. He'll solve it. He'll solve it."
He was
And then
like
he-
perturbed. He was like,
Yeah.
because Thor's like, "Oh, sorry, you failed," and he's like, "Just wait 1 minute."
Yeah.
He's like, "I'm gonna solve this."
And then it froze, and then I'm just like, and then I'm like, he'll solve it, please solve it. And then he solved it, and I'm like, oh my god, something's gonna happen. And then old ET come out. I'm like, oh shit, ET. So
And
yeah, it
that's-
was all right.
To me, this is why Thor's Chariot just edges out Thor's hammer ever so
Yeah.
slightly. I mean, yes, Thor's hammer does
It's
have James Earl
better.
Jones, but Thor is, I think, my favorite character in all of SG1. Like, just every time not to give anything away for Rhys, but every time we see Thor, it's just fucking brilliant.
And then when
And-
Thor's Chariot came down, when they're like, we're in trouble, we're getting killed.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, all right, be there in a minute.
Yeah.
And it's bigger than 3 Huttucks.
Just literally just
Whoa.
destroy everything in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
crack of thunder. I love the crack of thunder at the
Yeah, that was
start.
cool.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was still blue skies. You're like, he's coming.
Yeah.
Oh my. Ladies and gentlemen, I think this is Thor's Chariot.
An Asgard mothership. I've heard them described in Jafar legend.
When Teal'c says Jafar legend, it gives it such credence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know that it's real.
Yeah, even though they communicate with bullhorns, you're like, this must be some serious shit.
I heard it over the horn.
Now, what is it doing here? Is it just
Beaming.
disintegrating
Well,
everything?
I think
or-
it's beaming it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I can carry it. It's big enough.
But
Yeah.
then I don't know. Is it in the
Engines
ship?
are gone.
I reckon
Thor sends his
because...
thanks. It was your help that made this possible.
Thanks, Gawain.
Well, to be honest with you, I think we got kind of lucky.
He told me to give you a message to satisfy your curiosity.
The whole thing.
I'm to tell you he's a member of a species who have visited your world often.
Faded out.
So I think that's when Jackson was honest with him in the hall. I think that's what pissed him off to be like, you know, we're not going to come down and meet bloody O'Neill
Yeah.
because he's just pissed us off. He's just young and
Well, they're,
like
they're
the
not
Knock.
of Cimmeria.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they
That's
kind
right,
of
yeah, we-
transport Daniel and Sam back. F you guys.
Yeah.
Takes Gawain
And
up.
which puts Daniel's hat back on, mind you.
Oh, does it?
The Great Hall.
That's
It transformed us and also put my hat back on.
See, that's
take your damn hat back.
But yeah, I think because I can't see what we know of the Asgard later on. I can't see them just indiscriminately killing a bunch of Jafar for
Well,
for
I guess
being there.
they broke the treaty, so who knows what punishment that is.
Yeah, so I feel like that beaming technology was kind of, it looked like it was beaming up, those pyramids in chunks, and then also scooping up all the Jafar as well.
Yeah.
And I feel like Thor would have just taken them away in his ship and deposited them on a Goa'uld planet somewhere.
Yeah, but I guess you're right. At this stage, while we know that he's kind to his own people and he's very much about protecting them, and they said they're at war with the Goa'uld. We don't know. Like we spoke about not too long ago, the greatest villains in movie and TV are not the ones that yell and scream and bark orders and just kill everyone willy-nilly. It's most often the ones that sit there calmly and speak, in a very low volume. And maybe on the opposite side of that, that's what Thor could have been. He could have come down. He's tiny, he's a little puppet guy. He's there talking about what he's going to do and who these people are and blah blah blah. And then all of a sudden he comes in and goes, "Oh, there's the Goa'uld. Disintegrate them." Like he could have been like a good guy villain or a villainous good guy or however you describe it.
This is potentially the most powerful beings we've encountered so far.
Oh,
You look at, the Nox always had their big, giant, floating, invisible city, but we never really got to see technologically what they were capable of. And also, philosophically, they're not inclined to interfere like that. We meet the Tolan, who are kind of on a downer at the moment because, they've lost their planet and, they didn't have any ships to get to them and all that
And
sort
they're
of stuff.
dicks.
Yeah. Whereas suddenly we meet Thor's race, who are, these, benevolent sort of beings who are looking after, they're protecting these planets with these big-ass warships that just clean up an entire Goa'uld regiment in, 2 minutes. It's in 2 minutes, it's like the Goa'uld were never even on the damn planet.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's some serious power right
What
there.
kind of technology, speaking of tech, did the Goa'uld have when they first got their SG-1 and they see the Hatak, which is, I think, is this a new word that we're learning now of what they
I
describe?
think they said it in...
Serpent's
Yeah.
grasp. or
Okay,
whatever it
yeah,
was
because
called.
they definitely described what it meant. So maybe they said maybe it was Braytek and Teal'c saying
Yeah.
it to each other
Which
in
is
the past.
what,
but
those
the
pyramid
mothership.
ships.
pyramid
that
ships,
they-
yeah. So we see three Hataks.
Well, no, see, they're not Hatak.
Oh, really?
No, so this is the thing. This is the weird issue that I had. So Teal'c does say they're landing pedestals for Hatak.
Right,
yes.
okay.
So because
That's right.
when you see them kind of
Well, they're pretty close together.
that was my point. I've got a picture that we'll chuck up on online to show you. They're right next to each other. Like there's no daylight between these three pyramids as they're kind of being assembled as landing platforms. And it's like, well, if they can't move once they've been assembled, it's like there's no way three Hatak with those big fins they've got
Yeah.
around them could land. You couldn't
Yeah.
land three of them next to each other
Yeah.
like that.
I didn't think. Yeah, see, I didn't even think about them not being Hataks, but yeah. And I guess the whole idea then that they are landing docks goes against not so much my argument here, but when the SG-1 first see them, they just seem to be expanding. Like the
that
construction on
cool-
them was very quick. Like they were expanding from the inside. Like
Quarter
Well, in
of the wall.
5,000 years, they've gone a long way.
Yeah. A quarter of the wall
Goddamn
just
fat.
seems to just sort of hinge into position and then just sort of materialize and and builds in these big chunks.
It's all in IKEA flat packs, guys.
And I only want to bring that up because anyone who listens to Get Into Geek, we also do have another show called Get Into Geek, and we talk about movies and TV. And obviously, one of the big movies we spoke about a few weeks ago was Guardians of the Galaxy. And I dare say, if you're into Stargate, you've probably had a good look at Guardians of the Galaxy. And in Volume 2, no spoilers here if you haven't seen it yet, but the ship gets quite damaged, and Rocket, being the engineer that he is fixing it. And we never spoke about this in either of our chats.
Yeah.
But he seemed to have this like backpack on.
It was like
and
weed spray.
He was just spray painting the ship back together. Like it was destroyed a good chunk of it, and it was like he was spraying away the invisible cloak they had on them.
Magic wand on Photoshop. That's what it was.
It's exactly. And they never explained what it was. I'm like, hang on, that seems like a pretty big thing. It's like this ship is destroyed. I'd say, okay, he's going to spray paint it back together in 5 minutes. So don't worry that you're never going to see this ship again. But
and it's going to recreate all of Peter Quill's stuff from the 80s as well, just so he's got it for the next film.
Yeah, and all of his.
Yeah, why didn't they use that on his? Oh, spoiler alert! I won't say it.
Yeah. But back in this world, some world building or universe building. We get introduced to another Goa'uld System Lord, and this one's got some
so
pretty
lame.
crazy
I love
heritage
Heru'ur.
and pedigree.
Nah. He's got good pedigree.
Yeah.
I'll give him that.
I have this weird soft spot for Heru'ur. I don't know what it is. But
Uranus.
maybe it's no, he's a bit too skinhead for that.
So what is he? He's the son of Ra and
Hathor.
That bitch in the bath.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with all the baby shrimp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how That's how Daniel really could have got to. He's like, I've had sex with your mum in a bath. Completely got him off his game. They come in, bang, bang, sniper him in the head. You're
Hey
done.
man, I'm your new dad.
I killed your dad and I fucked him up.
Boom! The guy with the glasses never saw it coming.
You literally want a shot of him just firing and just going, "Who's your daddy now?"
No, not like that. He wouldn't hold it like that. It'd be one-handed sideways. What's up, mother?
Oh wait, that's me.
Yeah, I think for me, what immediately puts me off him and more into Brendan's side of this, Matty, is his costuming. It's so like it seems so baggy. It's like they haven't renewed it from the last much bigger actor that wore a System Lord gold outfit, because it just seems so floppy and not as fitting as Apophis. Like that seems to suit that actor.
Well, when we see him in the Nox, when he goes on his little hunting trip, he is wearing this beautiful gold, really outlandish outfit. Yep. Whereas Heru'ur kind of it's like they've just taken one of their many Jafar outfits in wardrobe and just given it a quick light spray paint in a slightly different colour and thrown it on him. But the thing I love so much about Heru'ur is every episode he's in is one of my favourites. Like every time we see Heru'ur, because we do see him escape at the end of the episode.
Very convenient.
Something to do,
that was so random.
He just has a casual walk. He just happens to be within, the Stargate by himself.
Well, he did say to a lot of
Thor
Jafar, he
attacks.
said, go to the Chopper Eye and basically wait for them because they're going to want to escape, which is fair enough. A very good order. Good leadership there, mate. But I'm like, I didn't see you sort of volunteering yourself. And that's quite a distance away from the landing docks that they're building, or at least the main hub of where all the Jafar were hanging out. So for when, like, arguably their greatest threat, as far as we know, to the Goa'uld show up, he is conveniently like 2 kilometres away. And just like, oh, that's happening? Boom. This gate was already open. Straight
Yeah, surely there'd be some Cimmerians between him and the bloody...
And that's the thing, it's not a Goa'uld planet, so it's not like he can have a set of rings set up where he can ring from his pyramid to the gate or anything like that. But the thing I love most about it is, I don't know where it's the symbol. I love I think Peter DeLuise, one of the directors, calls it the Trans Am Firebird logo, sort of on his forehead. But the thing I love the most is it reintroduces the horror scarred helmet.
Yeah, that's awesome.
This is the first time we've seen it since the film.
Yeah.
And I kind of got over the Serpent Guard, helmets pretty quickly. So to see the Horus Guard helmet again, I was just like, yes!
Yeah.
So yeah, I do have a bit of a soft spot for Heru'ur, I have to say.
I just forgot that he was in this. I think that's why it's just, for me, I was like, and the same as in a couple of episodes more time, I just went, oh yeah, it's him.
He didn't really have a big role, obviously it was just to introduce him as a character, give you a little bit of background so that he can come back into it.
Yeah, I mean, given how menacing Apophis has been for the last sort of season and a half. I mean, at this stage, SG-1 still thinks that Apophis and Chlorel are dead,
Yeah.
So I guess this was a way of giving us another Goa'uld but not giving away yet that Apophis is actually alive, to SG-1. So, yeah, he definitely doesn't have the gravitas of, Apophis, and not giving anything away for Rhys, but other Goa'uld we meet along the way. He definitely doesn't have as much, presence and gravitas, but I don't know, I have a soft spot for him.
I think that was the thing for me, is that when we are introduced to him, he's already yelling, and so he is already that loud, violent bad guy, and he's got the Goa'uld voice, the manipulated voice. And for me, I'm like, you haven't earned. Strangely, that was my thought. I'm like, you haven't earned the right to use that voice to the audience yet, because now it just seems like such C grade sci-fi. It's like, oh, there's an alien. He has a really deep, dark
and he has,
voice. Whereas
the bad classic pastiche
goatee
bad
stuff.
guy goatee.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just like,
looks like he should have an eyebrow ring with that shaved head. It's just like, I've seen a lot of game
and a
movies.
swastika instead
It doesn't,
of
it doesn't end well for you. But when you look at Apophis, he is that low-speaking villain a lot of the time. When he sees Teal'c, he's not yelling at Teal'c. He's like, Teal'c, you are the Shovar.
Yeah.
And you're like, shit, man, he's not even yelling at you, and you are the greatest traitor he has ever known. And you feel that because he's not overly or obviously angry.
And when we see Teal'c, when we see Apophis, he's got all these followers and people worship him, and Teal'c is like the first one to stand up to him. We get introduced to Heru'ur, and just some old mate stands up to him straight away, just some slave guy.
Kneel before your god. God is Thor. He taught us to stand as equals.
Yeah, you're going to die.
He's having none of it. He's like, screw you, Heru'ur. But I feel like that little phrase there pretty much sums up the entire series of Stargate.
Yeah.
It's a god trying to stand someone down, and this guy going, no, we stand as equals.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much an ongoing thing from now on through to season 10.
Another cool thing we learnt was that the Goa'uld send scouts to different worlds to see if they're inhabitable, which I thought was pretty cool. And if that scout doesn't come back, they just go, all right, we won't go to that world.
Yeah, I feel like whoever the scout was kind of lost a bet, because for the last however many hundreds or thousands of years, it's been like Cimmeria's Teal'c says in
again.
Hammer, it's a forbidden planet, blah blah blah, and then this guy's like, well, I'm definitely going to die. I'm going to Cimmeria. There's no return.
Probably just pissed someone off, and he's like, here, go to this planet. He hands him a piece of paper, and he's like, okay, here we go.
So when you think about it, that scout obviously went there. The Hammer probably sent him to the labyrinth.
Yeah.
He had to dig himself out of the labyrinth. So that plan was horrible. Oh, we've sealed it shut. No, you didn't.
No,
clearly not. Pour some
Goa'uld
concrete on it at least.
Well, that was what my problem with what Thor said to them when Daniel was saying the Goa'uld are here. He's like, no, this is a protected planet. This is fine. It's under our protection. I'm like, yeah, if they come through the Stargate, which is a very small thing on what I'm assuming is a pretty big planet. Like, if the Goa'uld come in a ship on the opposite side of the planet, are they protected from you over there? Or is this planet just this one village around the Chapel Eye? And yeah, I guess, sure, they are protected until, our guys destroyed it. But anyway,
yeah, well, there is a really, really small line, and it's kind of in the background of Thor's hammer when, Jack and Sam and stuff, they're talking and, making fun of the hologram or whatever. And the hologram is going on about some spiel about the Protected Planets Treaty.
Yeah.
So I think it's more a piece of paper between what we now know as the Asgard and the Goa'uld protecting this planet.
Well, they're idiots thinking the Goa'uld would go by
exactly.
Come on, guys.
The little hammer's there just to protect the gate, but it's kind of this piece of paper protecting the rest of the planet.
Yeah.
And it's like,
yeah. Well, obviously the Goa'uld are aware of the Asgard and can see what they've done previously to them in combat, so they're probably going, okay. That's fun. You got to give us some, though. We've got to enslave some people.
I'm just imagining Heru'ur. How do you pronounce his name?
Heru'ur.
Heru'ur going back. He's the last surviving man of that entire mission, which seemingly had hundreds, if not thousands, of Jafar, giant structures. And he goes back and where are all your people? He goes, they betrayed me. I destroyed them all. I am calm, strong. I am conquering. It's like,
you'd assume he'd still have 3 motherships in orbit.
Yeah.
When Thor's Chariot are coming.
Well, not in orbit, but on their way, I guess.
Why would he be there setting up for his motherships?
He seemed pretty hands-on.
And his keep. You've got managers and you've got leaders. He's a leader.
it's like when Apophis went on his hunting trip with his Jafar to the Nox
got
planet.
bored.
It's like, Heru'ur's the same. He's like, I'll put on my gold bird armor and we'll just go hang. He's a hands-on god. He likes to be the first one
You
to
got
interrogate.
sick of the misses. Oh, they've discovered Cimmeria again. Just going to go check it out.
Sitting out there. Just on a bit of TA. So, yeah, now revealing the Roswell Greys, I'm now thinking it's they are one of the species from Torment of Tantalus, where they had the four. What was it? Four different.
Four great races or whatever.
Yeah, 4 different scripts for the 4 great races. So
Yeah,
I'm thinking that's definitely one.
Does Daniel say in Torment of Tantalus, oh, that's Thor's race?
Yes.
Does he say that? Yeah.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, but obviously now we know
Yeah.
what Thor's race looks like.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
surely they weren't space Vikings
Yeah.
Yeah.
wandering around with big beards and all that
They
sort of
haven't
stuff.
said who the other two are, have they?
No, because Daniel couldn't read the stuff in the Torment of Tantalus. Well, they don't even know who the other race is, do they? Like they at this point they just call them an ancient race. There was an ancient race, and he's just Thor's people, and then, but he still doesn't really know
Well, there's 4
who
in
the
total.
ancient
Yeah.
who the ancient race is. But yeah, no, I thought there was a little great bit of callback where Gawain has that little bit at the end where she talks about how Thor says, you know, this race is you're still too young, which echoes what the Nox said
Yeah.
about humans. So yeah, there's definitely a these 4 great races all have that similar thinking and
We'll
just,
show you, motherfuckers.
Geriatrics, tell you.
Well, guys, I've found something here. It's a dusty book. As I flick through the pages of the Walter Diary.
How do you unlock and swipe that?
Yeah. He's old school.
Book?
Now, this could be the beginning of a great segment or the very ruin of one, depending how this goes.
Well,
All right.
this is our politics, all
You
right?
probably shouldn't have left it up to me to spawn a segment. But anyway.
Well, you're selling it well so far. So,
Expectations
Making
low,
you-
can only
yeah.
go up from here.
yeah. It's like
That's what
walking
we
into
need.
Suicide Squad, just, you know.
Snap.
All right.
So what have you
What is
found?
this?
What is it?
It's basically a book, and
It's a
got-
7-symbol lock on it.
it does, and I managed to crack it.
Oh.
And I've opened to the first page, and it's called the Walter Diaries.
Oh.
So Walter, the gate technician, obviously writes.
Well, you
his-
know who Walter is.
Yeah. Well, for the layman out there.
Yeah. Because I don't think he's actually named Walter yet, but we all know him as Walter.
That's it.
That's why I love that Rhys knows that he's Walter already.
Yeah.
Like, he won't get that name for another, 4 seasons, but he's already Walter.
So obviously SG-1 get to do mission reports, so Walter figures, well, I might as well do my own personal mission reports.
Well, and we haven't seen him for a while, so it'd be good to know what he's
It'll be
up
good
to.
to
Where
know
is
what
he?
he's doing.
So it's dated back at this episode, is it?
It is,
Oh.
indeed.
Oh.
Coincidence.
This is the first one that's where we're going from
First
here.
entry, 31st of July, 1998.
All right. So here I read from the Walter Diaries. Gate Technician's Personal Log, Stargate, S2.06.
Is that a Star Trek reference? Can we turn his microphone off? Or is that just you get one?
Hey, that's Walter. That's
There's
Walter.
3 per episode. so-
And Walter knows that.
He's a fan. I'm on the evening shift this week. I don't know what I did to fall out of favour with General Hammond, but I will do everything in my power to make it back as head gate technician instead of Sarah Silverman.
Poor man Sarah Silverman.
A quiet week this week. That is, if you're used to 6 teams being off-world, relying on you to make sure the iris is open at a moment's notice.
Takes his iris work very seriously.
For me, even an innocuous bathroom break could cause catastrophic events. This is
Where
gold.
in the bathroom? Or?
That is great, because in a later season you do see him in the background sipping Pepto-Bismol. So that's actually good. That's good.
Sure, no one's due back tonight, but on quiet nights like this, it makes me often wonder, what if there was an unscheduled off-world activation in the embarkation room? I'm the only one here. Should I announce it through the microphone? Even if SG-3 suddenly dialed from a standard reconnaissance mission, protocol dictates I have to close the iris, because we don't know if the Goa'uld got them or not. And I couldn't open the iris until I got the correct IDC. When that wormhole opens, those seconds when you're waiting for that IDC to come through, that's when you know you're alive. Because even if one digit is out of place, you're going to hear a thud. And that thud is SG-3! They didn't make it! And some people say, hey, Walter, you're just a gate technician, relax. No! I'm not going to risk it! Not when the whole world's at stake. I'm not opening that iris just because somebody, Gregory, might be dyslexic. Nah, they're going to perish as if they were Goa'uld.
Wow.
And these are the things that keep me up at night, because I'm a gate technician, That's what I do. Wow.
Wow, he takes his job very
What a
seriously.
And I tell you, he
Great
keeps it all
insight.
in.
Oh,
He keeps it in.
He's so professional at work too. You'd never think that those were his thoughts.
Yeah, it's almost like, when you hear, a colleague just goes nuts and kills a bunch of people. And there's always the people that go, he was always so quiet at work, He was so unassuming.
Yeah, he wore a vest.
Well, I think
Based on that, do you reckon he's got anybody held captive in his basement? Is that why he's not here? He's he's putting the lotion in the basket and just lowering it down? Or...
Chevron 7 lock. Say it.
You're ruining Walter for me.
Just imagine him running into SG3 on next week's episode, and they walk past. He's like, "I almost killed you."
Hello, Gregory.
But yeah, good insight anyway to the mind of a gate technician.
Yeah, wow.
I'm really intrigued to see what happens.
We've often
next.
talked about what happens to the family of henchmen from Lost in Power, so that's
No one thinks about the gate technicians.
no one thinks about them. They could carry a heavy burden. Rhys, you love Tilk. Any good Tilk moments in this episode?
Yeah. When Tilk was on the screen, that was pretty sweet.
Well, I guess we'll just have to hole up in here a while till things calm down.
Things will not calm down, Daniel Jackson. They will, in fact, calm up.
Love how long they hold it.
He means things will escalate, of course.
Totally missed that.
Did ya?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
God.
Yeah.
Were you having a session?
Well, Tilk
I
was
forgot to pause it.
Tilk was on the screen, so clearly he was.
By myself, obviously.
He obviously was, mid-climax when Tilk was saying that. So.
I read online that some fans had a problem with the radius thing when they were in the Hall of Might.
Oh, right, yeah.
Why is that?
Well, for whatever reason, they were talking about Carter, how you find the circumference of a circle using the radius.
Yeah.
But they're saying you actually use the diameter. But you can actually use both, obviously.
Yeah.
Because the formula is C equals 2 pi
2 pi
r.
R, yeah.
And then the other one is pi, or d pi d.
But the diameter is what? All the way across the circle, and the radius is from the
center
middle
out.
to... But isn't that the whole point? Is from the center of a circle to the outside of the circle, if you times that by 3.14159, that's
Times
how you
2.
get the circumference, isn't it?
2 pi r.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So, yeah.
It's the same.
Same
thing. I don't know if you don't want to add this to the tally or whatever. Or we think Daniel dies when Goa'uld and him are on the bridge thing and they fall off. You're like, oh, Daniel's dead. Oh, no.
Yeah. He doesn't
it's a line
technically.
ball, isn't it?
He doesn't die.
To
I think we
Carter,
can add
he never died. For Carter, Carter was in the room and she never saw him fall. Like, it was only to the
Yeah.
audience. So,
That's true.
who are we judging this by?
Phew.
I don't know. Why is everyone looking at me? It's not my tally.
Well, it is.
I'm giving tallies how many
Yeah,
chicks
I-
he bangs. I'm not That's my tally. Someone else can tell you how many times he fake dies.
Yeah, I think we'll add that to the tally.
Yeah. Why not?
Oh, that's episode 28. Get Into Gate. Thor's Chariot, promising some big things for the future of the Asgard Boys. Season 2, Ep 6, of course, of Stargate SG-1. We will be back next week. More Stargate Sundays. What do we get next week? A message in a bottle. Not just a great song by the Police, or even a romantic comedy starring Kevin Costner from the 90s.
Oh, I don't
But
remember
a
that.
great SG-1.
Postman.
No. Yeah, that too.
The Horse Whisperer. Oh, clearly it's Waterworld, isn't what we're going to reference.
Yeah, that's his great. That's the great one. Get Into
We'll
Gate.
start low and go up.
Tin Cup.
Killer.
We will be back next week and a talk message in a bottle. Until then, you can find all of our podcasts on iTunes and SoundCloud simply at Get Into Gate. Find us on socials, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well, Get Into Gate, or drop us a line if you have any great theories, if you want to talk about your own. Myself, you can find me Mitch_Lewis on Twitter and Instagram. Matty.
At Matty on Instagram.
Brendan.
At the Brendan Gibson.
And Rhys.
I'm at the Flying Gibson.
That's Thor's Chariot. We will be back next week to talk message in a bottle on Get Into Gates.
GetIntoGeek.com.
Oh, yeah, we
Killed your dad and your mom.
I was about to say the exact same
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
That's totally what he did.